Hi, hello, and welcome back to the Daily Journal's Prep Focus on Football. I'm your host, Tim Ahrens. With me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, the authority on high school football in the state of Illinois, Steve Soucie, and the TV star. I'm sure most of you watched Soucie on the Comcast pairing show, and he did a marvelous job.
Wow, a compliment, unexpected.
Well, I only did that to then follow up with, you didn't get any of the words in there that I asked you to say.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I take full responsibility for that. I really, those of us that are working in the TV biz understand how something like this could have happened. Okay. So I won't go into a lengthy explanation because, it's kind of mundane. But, it's just one of those things that happens with TV professionals every once in a while.
Okay, and so that doesn't explain how it happened to you, but...
yeah, well, okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Just a little bit of disappointment. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, all right.
But what isn't disappointing...
Just add it to the pile.
Yeah. What isn't disappointing, though, is we have 15 schools in our coverage area. 9 of them made the playoffs. You said last week 6, I think. And then earlier in the season you said 8, and you missed both those.
Well, you didn't make a declaration on either, so you're going to critique me on the ones that I missed.
Sure.
Okay, that's fine. I see how that is. It was a crazy Friday last week in week 9. There were a lot of crazy things that happened. Opened the door for some teams to get in. We had some teams that absolutely had to win, and fortunately for them, they all got that job done. So we were able to get 9 in. It looked questionable whether we were going to get more than 5 at one point in time. So it was a really interesting week 9, and fortunately for our area teams, it was a good week 9 for most of them.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we've got 9 in there, but we've got 8 games to talk about, and of course we'll talk about that as we go. But let's talk about the 7A playoffs. And we're here at Bradley Bourbonnais right now. They're in the 7A playoffs. They absolutely needed to win on Friday. They got that win. So in a way, the playoffs started for them last week. But so what they will do now is they will head down to Pekin and they will play the Dragons. Both teams are 6-3. Pekin is the 4 seed. Bradley's the 5. That's why Pekin has the home game. And that game will be Friday at 7.
Interesting Pekin team. It's hard to figure exactly where they mesh with Bradley here. They play a schedule with mostly 4 and 5A level schools, so it's going to be interesting to see how Bradley matches up with them. Bradley's obviously a little bit more battle tested, but the one thing Pekin has and has a lot of is team speed. The most notable player on the team is Cole Henderson, the state champion in both the 100 and 200 meter dash in last spring's track meet. So that's a problem that the Boilermakers are going to have to deal with. That being said, I think the Boilermakers have a little bit too much for him, and I'm going to take Bradley in this one.
I will also take Bradley. The ground game, Boyd, it's been there all year, but really came to life last week for them, and that's how you win in the playoffs.
Well, you have that 3 running back attack that Bradley has, and I have a feeling that Pekin's going to have a lot of trouble with that with Jared Ware, L.J. Harris, and Tim Stones. So that's a good pick, Tim.
So we're gonna both pick Bradley.
Yes, we are. And you're just for the record, for clarification's sake, you're still 6 games behind me.
So
you need to start taking some
and there's
different
approximately how many weeks left?
5? We have 5 weeks left.
Okay, so I have to game 1 game plus a game every. Okay, so I can do that.
Okay,
I can do that. Okay, now we're going to jump down to Class 4A. Coal City, also one of those teams that had to win.
Yes, absolutely.
To win and got the job done. They are an 8 seed and they are 5-4. They will travel to Quincy to play Quincy Notre Dame, a top-seeded Quincy Notre Dame team who is 8-1. That game is Saturday at 1.
Yeah, this is a rough draw for the Kohlers, but that comes to be expected when you're one of the last teams to get into the field. Quincy Notre Dame lost their first game to a very strong team in Missouri and hasn't been even touched since. They're a strong team. They can both run and throw the football. And that long trip isn't going to be favorable for the Kohlers either. It's over 4 hours to get over there for this one. So I'm going to go with Quincy Notre Dame in this one.
Likewise, I will take the top-seeded Raiders also. I looked up all the team nicknames.
Wow, so, preparation.
This is as most prepared I've ever been.
Wow.
So if that says anything,
the bar was pretty low anyway.
It was. Also in Class 4A, Pontiac will travel to Peatone. Peatone 7-2, one of the bigger surprises in our area, I think. We'll play Pontiac, which is 6-3, and that game is Friday at 7.
Well, you and I have been watching high school football for a while, and we're used to Pontiac being one of the stronger teams in the middle classes, but over the last couple of years, that really hasn't been the case. They're kind of on the upswing. They played a little bit better this year and obviously got themselves back into the playoff field. But I don't think they're all the way back to the Indians that we're accustomed to. So in this one, I'm going to go with the home team, and I'm going to take the Blue Devils in this one.
I will also take Piatone. I have a acquaintance at the gas station near where I live, and he plays for Kankakee. He assured me that Piatone could beat Pontiac. He said Pontiac's no good.
Okay.
But interesting about Pontiac, my senior year, we broke a 26-game losing streak by losing to them in week 1.
Well, congratulations.
Glad we could help.
Yeah.
You know, anything we could do to help Pontiac, that's, you know. Okay, we're going to stay in 4A. Manteno, who absolutely had to win, and not surprising that they won, but was by the score. I mean, they were up 42-0 at one time, I think, something like that. So,
well, Coach R.J. Haynes was telling me after the fact, of course, that they had made a lot of adjustments, and Seneca was the first team that got the privilege of seeing those adjustments. And whatever those adjustments were, boy, they worked, because they were seemingly scoring about every 60 seconds. So when I was checking that score on Friday night, routed a Seneca team that entered that game at 7-1. So obviously they're riding a little bit of momentum here as they head down to Mahomet. But Mahomet's a pretty good football team when it comes right down to it. Second place in the Corn Belt. They lost to a very good Normal University team for their only loss of the season. I imagine Manteno's going to have some trouble matching up with them. But right now, I think this actually might be a pretty interesting game just based on what we saw last week. So I'm going to take Mahomet, but I do think it's going to be a pretty good game.
Yeah, I will take Mahomet. That game is Saturday at 1 p.m. And let's move over to 3A. Bishop McNamara didn't have to win to get into the playoffs, but they beat De La Salle anyway, which improved their draw, and they drew a home game against a public league team. They will play Harper. Both teams are 6-3, and that game is Saturday at 1.
Well, as far as the Irish were concerned, the gifts just kept coming on Saturday. The first one was when we realized on Saturday morning that it looked like the Irish were going to slide into the 3A playoffs, which is something they haven't done in a very long time. Right. Won some state championships with the last time they were residing in 3A. Not saying that that's setting an omen there, but the field looks pretty wide open in 3A, and McNamara's really happy to be in it. And then on top of it, they draw a Chicago Public League school in the first round. And those of you that don't know, Chicago Public League teams notoriously don't do very well in the playoffs. So the Irish look like they're in good shape for a week 1 victory in the playoffs here, and I'm going to take the Fighting Irish.
I will also take the Fighting Irish. I think I looked up Harper, but I didn't write it down, but they only have like 2 playoff wins in 24 appearances or something like that. So.
I've seen Harper play twice, and both times they got beat by more than 40 points.
Yeah,
so
I think I've seen them once play Kankakee, and Kankakee handed them their supper too.
Right.
So, okay, also in 3A, Wilmington will host Oregon. Wilmington comes in at 8-1. Oregon's 5-4. Wilmington loves those home games on Saturday night. When it comes playoff time, they will play at 6 o'clock.
These two have a little bit of a history here. Wilmington has played Oregon several times in the playoffs in the past, and obviously they're in a situation where the Wildcats are primed to get another victory here in the playoffs against an Oregon team that's 5-4 and has lost some close games this year. Coach Reentz commented to me this weekend that Oregon's not a real 5-4 team in his opinion, because they've lost some close games to some really good football teams. That being said, both these teams like to run the football, and I think Wilmington can do it a little bit better, especially on their own stomping grounds, and I'm going to take the Wildcats.
I will also take Wilmington there. And now here comes 2A, and this is the game we didn't want to see. It's Moments at Central, and it's not that we don't like Moments in Central, but they just played last week, and here the IHSA hands them back. Here we go again, Moments at Central.
Well, this was the one when I got the pairings on Saturday night where I put my hand to my forehead and gave the old Homer Simpson dough at that point, because it was like, really, we're going to do this again? I mean, for Moments, it means now that of their last 12 games that they've played as a football team, they've played Central 4 times. That's astonishing. I really think something needs to be done about these rematches, because there were a lot of them in this year's playoff field, and none that really, stood out as much as this one did. I mean, last year Moments had a pretty good football team, and their season came to an end to a really good Central team. And I mean, this year they're coming in off another loss to Central. The confidence of whether or not they can pick off that upset is probably not real high. So Central's playing really good football right now. They shut out Moments last week. Their defense is really on top of their game, and that leads me to take Central.
I'll take Central too. That Central's 9-0, Moments is 6-3. That 9-0 season is Brian Spooner's first regular season undefeated, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's something there. That game is actually going to be on Saturday at 3 o'clock. I think the IHSA website might say 2 o'clock, but I believe you said it's 3 o'clock,
Right.
and I'm going to listen to the authority.
Well, okay.
Okay, and down in 1A, we have Milford Cissna Park, and they were 5-4. They had to win. Of course, they were playing Hoopston. They figured they'd win, but they had to kind of have the heebie-jeebies about their playoff points there. Their reward for getting in is they get to go to Ottawa to play Ottawa Marquette, which is 9-0. That game is Friday at 7.
Well, there was a lot of talk before the week started about Milford having problems with their playoff points, but they got a lot of help in week 9 and actually would have breezed into the field even if things would have held on. Iroquois West picked them up a point. They had points. They had more than enough points. They ended up with 39, which was about 2 more than a lot of people thought they were going to have. So they ended up getting in the field rather easily. Their reward for all of this is a very good Ottawa Marquette team. They've dominated the Northeastern Conference this year, winning most of their games by 40-plus points. It's a really big challenge for Milford. However, Milford's got some explosive weapons on offense, and I really think that they maybe can match up with this Ottawa Marquette team. There's a difference of opinion whether or not this is a deep conference that Ottawa Marquette plays or not, so we'll have to see when it comes right down to it. But I think Milford can go there, make a game of it, but I'm still going to go with the Ottawa Marquette Crusaders.
Yes, I will take Ottawa Marquette as well. So what was the final playoff point? You had projected to be like 38. What was the cutoff?
It dropped all the way down to 36 over the course of the Friday events. The one thing about that, though, there were no 37-point teams at 5-4, so it wasn't that big of a drop. It seems like a lot, but it wasn't that huge.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up our look at the games for the first week of the playoffs. Let's go back to week 9 again, and who was our player of the week?
Player of the week is going to be Bishop McNamara's Jonathan Ward. 5 touchdowns and well over 300 yards rushing for the sophomore. Obviously got his game cranked up to a majorly big-time level heading into the playoffs. Hopefully for the Fighting Irish, that'll continue for a couple more weeks at least.
Well, it's playoff time, I know, and you like to get in 2-3 games over the weekend, I'm sure. Where you headed this week?
Well, Friday night I'm going to head down to Pekin. I've never been there before, and you know my fascination with going to schools that I haven't been to before. So I'm going to go down and see the Boilermakers challenge the Dragons of Pekin. And then on Saturday, I'm just going to run all over the place and see how many games I can get to. I think that's my game plan.
Well,
I'm covering the Wilmington game, but I'm going to try to get in a little bit at a couple other games as well.
Okay, so you're going to add a list or add a school to the list that you've been to. Is that now? Have you been to more schools than you haven't been to? Do you think? Or I know you had a list at one time.
It's over 200 Illinois schools that I've been to now. But which I think still puts me a little short of the halfway mark, to be honest. I think it's around 230. So there are about 550 now. So it puts me just a little bit short of the halfway mark. But hopefully we'll have some adventures here in the playoffs and maybe get a few more knocked out.
You've been in the business about 20 years, so you've got about 20 more years to go. So you know maybe you could get about 400 by the time
there we
you
go.
wrap it up. So.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, well speaking of wrapping it up, we should probably do that. But before we go, please grab Thursday's edition of the Daily Journal, turn right to the sports section, and we will have some playoff previews, and we're going to have our playoff picks, and lots of other things, stats, and I don't know, we'll just have a bevy of things, a bevy.
All right.
That's
what we're going with?
That's what we're going with, a
Okay.
bevy. I was going to say plethora, but bevy's better.
All right.
Okay.
Now that you've got your vocabulary crisis
Oh,
out
I
of the
got
way,
the
we
little
can move on.
calendar,
Attaboy.
word of the day. That's where I got hullabaloo. And you didn't say that word either.
Yeah.
So, but you already said you couldn't say that word. So,
Yeah.
All right. So for Steve Soucie and for our videographer Nicole Leonhardt and for Tim Ahrens, we'll see you on the sidelines.